Jen Richardson writes, "Let this blessing gather itself around you. Let it give you what you will need for this journey. You will not remember the words. They do not matter. All you need to remember is how it sounded when you stood in the place of death and heard the living call your name."
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Easter service at First Parish Church of Groton. My name is Cindy Prumrow, and it is so wonderful to see all of you here today. We are a community seeking to deepen spiritually, to take care of one another, and to be a blessing to the world. Unitarian Universalism is indeed a faith for all. To bring all of who you are, all of your beliefs, identities, abilities, challenges, and gifts, bring all of what you've been and all of what you've done. There is room for all of it. Our congregation welcomes and includes a wide diversity of beliefs. I invite you to freely translate the language you hear in today's service. If you're visiting for the first time today, whether here in person or online, we are so glad that you found us. If you would like more information, email welcome@uugroton.org, and we'd be glad to get you connected. This is a service for all ages, and we especially welcome children and youth today. We are not concerned about kid noise and hope you won't be either. But the service is broadcast downstairs in several locations if anyone needs to take a break. There is also childcare in the Growing Times room through the door by the high pulpit, and you can take little ones there at any time. We have a virtual service gathering on Zoom at 7 p.m. on Sunday evenings. Please email welcome@uugroton.org for the link, or check your Friday email from church. Today's service will be posted on our YouTube channel by 7 p.m. And thank you to the adult choir who is singing this morning after a long break, and to Melissa Wood who is videotaping. Our ushers today are 3 generations of the Lombardi family: Sal, Diane, Karen, and Sheila. They have large print lyric sheets and assisted listening devices. If you need anything during the service, they will be happy to help. And I have just a few announcements. The flowers on the altar this morning are from Bob and Sue Lotz in honor of the people of Ukraine. We have learned through the pandemic that our sanctuary is not confined to this room or to any place at all. Sanctuary is what we create together. Whenever and from wherever you're joining us, whether here in the sanctuary this morning or virtually, please come in and rest for a while. You are so welcome here.
All right. So I'm going to call us to worship now and ask us to settle into this time of sanctuary on this Easter morning together. It has become our tradition to ring the meditation bell 3 times. So the first bell is for you. Take a nice deep breath with it. The second, just thinking of all those you love so dearly. And the third, for this whole aching, beautiful world. And the blessing of the adult choir is about to be ours. Our opening hymn is Morning Has Come. We are still, because of COVID, refraining from congregational singing indoors, but if you'd like to follow along, it's number 1000 in your blue or teal hymnal, if you'd like to read the words along. But we invite you to rise in body and or spirit, to hum along, to sway, to tap, however you want to bring the music into your body, and enjoy our beautiful choir. It was created during World War II for the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. The members of that committee were involved in rescuing Jews and other persecuted groups and getting them out of Europe. It's a symbol of resilience and hope. And today I am thrilled to say that Heidi, Scott, Santiago, and Sophia Adams will be lighting our chalice. And word has it there's an original poem involved.
Morning, everybody. Morning. Happy Easter. So our word of today is praise. So we offer praise for what rises, sun and moon and stars, the waking up each morning.
Praise for the plants reaching up through the dirt. Praise for bread which rises in the oven. Praise for the flight of birds.
Let us praise for the spirit of people pushed down by oppression, our cross generations rising up.
Praise for raising our voices, for raising our children, for raising our hands in greeting and in blessing and in protest.
Praise for what rises, the sap of maples, the passion of souls and bodies.
Let us offer praise for what rises, joyful and glorious on this day, the old promise renewed, the beginning again and again in love. Praise for what rises.
Hi, I'm Sophia Adams, and I would like to share some things with you. I hope you like it. Love can be shared with friends and family, and today is a beautiful day to celebrate that. And now is a good time to tell you a poem about Easter, and it's called Easter Hops. I hope you like it. Easter Hops by Sophia Adams. Hop, 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 the bunny says, hop, hop to find your Easter egg. Hop, hop to have adventures, hop, hop to explore. Hop, hop to find candy, hop, hop to have joy. Hop, hop to have fun, hop, hop to have love. Hop, hop to have peace. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter is my new favorite thing. There might be a beer involved later with Happy Well, we could keep going, that's not. I'll invite us to remain seated with the while the choir sings the spirit of life. You can hum along or just close your eyes and listen. We do it in Spanish and then in English, and the words are in your order of service.
We have started lighting a special peace candle for the people of Ukraine and for all other people around the world who live in the midst of war and violence. Abby Alberga will light the peace candle today, and then the choir will sing the response. And I invite you to use this time to pray for peace and safety and freedom for all who are in need of it.
Gandhi wrote, "When I despair, I remember that all through history, the way of truth and love has always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they can seem invincible. But in the end, they always fall. Think of it, always. We lit this candle for peace."
to the children for a little bit and to the child that lives inside each one of us. So first let's say our words for gathering together and we'll do the hand motions. We are Unitarian Universalists, with minds that think, hearts that love, and hands ready to help. So on Easter, we're celebrating two things. One thing is spring, and all the new life that is coming into the world. All the flowers are starting to come up, and the bright yellow forsythia, and the buds on the trees, which are giving a lot of grown-ups bad allergies. But we are glad anyway. It always feels like a long time waiting. Eggs are another sign of spring. The real ones, because birds start building their nests and laying their eggs, and lots of other animals have their babies in the spring, and that is one of the reasons why there are lots of eggs and rabbits involved with Easter, because they remind us of new life and how the earth is waking up. And they remind us that spring always comes no matter how long the winter felt. Did it feel long this year? Yes, I think it did. And Easter is also a time to celebrate a man who lived over 2,000 years ago named Jesus. Now, Jesus was a teacher, but he didn't teach in school. He taught everywhere. He walked around talking to people and teaching. And everywhere he went, people gathered to learn from him. And he told stories to people, because he knew that stories are the best way to learn. And mostly he talked about how everyone matters and everyone is important and we need to treat everyone with kindness. And the people that the others didn't really want to be friends with or didn't really like, the lonely ones or the ones who felt like they didn't quite fit in, those were the people that Jesus especially wanted to be around. That's what he was like. And after he died, his friends were really sad. But they loved him so much, and they didn't stop loving him. And they remembered all the things he told them, and they tried to follow what he had taught them, and they told and they retold the story of Jesus' life and the stories he had told them, and eventually they wrote everything down so they wouldn't forget, and they didn't forget. And the love that they had for Jesus and each other didn't go away. The love stayed. Now, some people believe that after Jesus died, he came alive again for a little while, and his friends got to see him and talk to him again. And nobody knows for sure whether or not that part really happened. But on Easter, we celebrate the way that love doesn't go away. And we celebrate new life. So Lee and I have a story for you today. It's called The Bird's Gift, a Ukrainian Easter story. And this is a very old story, and it's told in lots of different ways, but this version is by Eric Kimmel. And we are going to read it together, and there's lots of room to imagine this in your head. And we did not practice this, so we're going to see just how it goes. Okay, the story starts in winter, but don't worry, because we're going to get to spring. Winter had come early, and snow covered the village as far as Petrusia could see. Her grandfather was already awake.
Come out before the others and wake up, he told her. We have a world of snow all to ourselves.
Petrusia dressed quickly. She buttoned her coat, she covered her head with a huskah, the colorful scarf the women of her village wore to keep warm. She put on her mittens and ran out the door, and the snow nearly reached the top of her boots as she and her grandfather walked through the sleeping village all the way to the forest. Grandfather stopped beneath a birch tree to shake the snow from his hat, and Petrusia stuck out her tongue to catch the flakes. Suddenly, she stopped and pointed to the foot of the tree where a fleck of gold shone like a buried coin through the snow.
What's that?
Grandfather bent down close to look.
It's a bird, a little golden bird.
Petrusia stared at the half-frozen little bird cradled in her grandfather's mittens, wondering how it had gotten stuck in the snow. Grandfather told her.
This happens when winter comes early. Flocks of birds get caught in the snow and freeze. It's very sad.
Grandfather, can't we do anything?
We can take the bird home and put it by the stove. But, Katrushka, we would only be saving this one little bird, and hundreds may be dying.
Let's look for them, Grandfather. Let's save as many as we can. So Katrushka and Grandfather tiptoed among the trees looking for flecks of gold and listening for the tiny sounds of peep, peep. They gently brushed the snow to find dozens of little half-frozen golden birds, and they filled their pockets and their coats and their mittens, and Katrushka even tucked some into her headscarf, and still there were more birds. Finally, Grandfather said,
We'll take them home, and then we'll come back for the rest.
They arrived home just as Mama was preparing breakfast, and Katrushka burst through the door, opened her coat, and what happened? Birds! A flock of tiny birds flew around the kitchen.
Mama, the birds are dying in the snow, and we brought home as many as we could carry, but there are still more out there.
I'll help, said Katrushka's sister, Luba.
We'll help.
Yelled Ivan and Danilo. We'll get our friends to help.
There will be more birds than can fit in one house. I'd better open the barn,
Said Tato, her father. So Katrusia and grandfather returned to the forest, but this time they didn't go alone. News about the birds spread through the village, and everyone came to help. They all took birds inside their coats and hats and mittens and scarves, and they lined baskets with blankets and filled the baskets with birds, and they carried them back to the village until all the houses and barns were full. And still there were more birds, and no one knew where to put them. And just then, Father Roman, the priest, came running from the village.
What's this I hear about birds? The birds need our help. There's so many, and we don't have room for them all in our houses, but they're left in the snow and they'll die. I know a place with lots of room, said Father Roman.
Where do you think he's gonna put those birds? Yes, right here.
What better shelter for God's creatures than God's house? Bring them to church. Bring them all to church.
So everyone carried the birds to church until there were no more birds to be found, and they filled the church with their chirping and fluttering up by the ceiling like flecks of living gold. Now the bitter weather continued, and more snow fell, and it was the coldest winter in memory. And yet somehow the winter didn't seem quite so long or cold. The birds chirped as the choir sang, and they perched on Father Roman's shoulders as he preached the sermon.
Listen to the birds, he told them. Their sermons are better than mine.
One morning, the birds started behaving strangely. They gathered by the windows, flapping their wings and flinging themselves against the panes. At church that morning, everyone was asking the same question. What's wrong with the birds? What should we do?
They want us to let them go, Father Roman explained. But winter isn't over yet, Katrushka protested. She did not want her friends to leave. Trust the birds. They know what is best, Father Roman told her gently. Then we won't have to clean up after them so much. We will release them after church, grandfather said, and everyone agreed.
That morning, Father Roman read the story about how God created the world in 6 days. And while the birds flew over their heads, he talked about a time to come when lions would lie down with lambs and all creatures would live in peace. Katrushka listened to every word. She hoped that time would come soon.
Now it's time to set the birds. I didn't want that part of it. Now's the time to set the birds free, he said, walking to the doors of the church and throwing them wide open.
The birds flew outside in a golden stream. They circled the church. They perched in the trees, calling to the birds still in the houses. And the villagers went home and threw open their doors and windows, and the golden flock filled the sky and flew away toward the forest. Within minutes, they were gone. Katrushka started to cry. She felt like pieces of her heart had flown away. The rest of the winter passed slowly, but finally, muddy patches appeared beneath the snow, and the crocuses pushed their heads up, and spring had come at last, and finally it was Easter. And everyone put on their new linen blouses embroidered with flowers and tied up their hair with ribbons, and as Katrushka stepped outside, she noticed something blue and gold lying on the ground. What do you think?
An Easter egg, she exclaimed. It was decorated with designs of flying golden birds in a blue sky. It was the most beautiful egg she had ever seen. Here's another one, yelled Ivan, and another one, yelled Danilo.
The children of the village hunted everywhere and found dozens and dozens and dozens of beautiful eggs, each decorated with its own design. They gathered them in baskets and brought them to church. Where did they come from, they wondered.
Father Roman laughed. "Look up," he said. They looked up and saw that the trees and roofs were all filled with the golden birds. "The birds," Katrushka said in wonder. "The birds have given us this Easter gift."
And ever since that day, in memory of the bird's gift, the people of Ukraine have made pisanki. Is that how you say it? Pisanki? Pisanki? Say it again. Pisanki. Thank you. And they are the most beautiful Easter eggs of all. They are a symbol of hope and life, and a reminder that spring always comes. The end. The choir will sing us into a time of meditation and prayer now.
There are prayer cards in your pew, and if you'd like me to hold your concerns or your joys in prayer in the evenings, as I do here in the sanctuary, you're welcome to bring them up and leave them here. Today's spoken prayer here in the service is a participatory one for our service of all ages. It's by Laura Vogel, and it's slightly adapted. And your part goes like this. Wake us up! Right? Wake us up! There you go. I'll give you the cue. Gentle spirits of New England spring, spirits of green haze on trees and daffodils, and slowly warming earth and bird song.
Wake us up!
Transforming spirits of wind and rain and sun.
Wake us up!
Spirits of every animal growing things of this earth.
Wake us up!
Spirits of every place from which we come.
Wake us up!
Spirits for all who have come before us, who support us in our becoming.
Wake us up!
Spirits of every beautiful, life-giving expression of human beingness.
Wake us up!
Spirit of people on the move all over the world.
Wake us up!
People denigrated and denied, cast out and forgotten.
Wake us up!
Wake us up to our wholeness and our holiness.
Wake us up!
To the gifts in one another and our connectedness with those here and those who are far from where we are.
Wake us up!
For love.
Wake us up!
For justice.
Wake us up!
Wake us up for this moment, courageous and alive. May all our awakenings serve to answer your call, Spirit of Life. Amen.
Our generosity sustains this congregation and allows us to continue to live our mission, to deepen spiritually, to take care of each other, and to be a blessing to this world. We could not do it without all of us. And while our belonging here will never be measured by our capacity to give, we need financial support to keep creating this beloved community. A letter with our annual spring ask just went out this week. Our goal and our very real need is $35,000 to get us through this fiscal year. If you are able, donations in any and all amounts are welcome and needed and so much appreciated, both today and in response to our letter. And you can also go to the church website, www.uugroton.org, and easily donate there. And we have an offering for you today, too. We will be passing baskets of eggs around. They're not empty, but they feel very light. They're not empty. So we invite you to take an egg from the basket as it comes around, but don't open it yet. In addition, we have a little something for the children that Jaya and Sophie will be bringing around. Those are for children and teenagers, and those you can open. But first, the morning offering will be given and gratefully received.
I'm gonna sing when the Spirit says sing. I'm gonna sing when the Spirit says sing. I'm gonna sing when the Spirit says sing. Sing for the joy our voices bring. I'm gonna sing, sing, sing when the Spirit says sing.
I love the story of that first Easter morning as told in the Gospel of John. We usually tell the other ones, maybe because they're the oldest versions of the story, and all four have the most important details in common. As soon as the Sabbath is over, Mary Magdalene, sometimes with others and sometimes alone, goes to prepare the body of Jesus for burial, and he's not there. In John's version, Mary goes by herself and is the first to see the empty tomb, and she runs to a couple of the other disciples and brings them back to show them that the body of their beloved leader is gone. The linen shrouds they wrapped him in are there, but he isn't. The other disciples go home. Maybe to tell everyone, maybe because they have no idea what to do. Intense grief does that to us. But we are told that Mary stays. She bends down to look inside the tomb, and she sees two angels sitting there where Jesus' body had been, and they ask her, "Why are you crying?" And as theologian Kate Bowler points out, this is actually kind of a heartless question to ask in a cemetery. Why do you think I'm crying? But she answers them, and she doesn't even seem startled or surprised that they're angels and that they're there, and she just says they've taken away the body of my beloved. And I don't know who did it, and I don't know where he is. And she stands up and turns around, and she practically bumps into another man who asks her the same question. Why are you crying? And the author tells us right away that it is Jesus, and that Mary doesn't know it yet. She mistakes him for the gardener, or the groundskeeper of the cemetery. And she says to him, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you put him, and I will take him." And then Jesus says her name, and she knows who it is. There's so much I love about this story. First, that Mary mistakes Jesus for the gardener, which another wonderful theologian, Nadia Bolz-Weber, imagines that she will never live down for the rest of her life. Nadia Bolz-Weber writes, "If her friends were anything like mine, for the rest of their life, after they'd all had a beer or two, the disciples would be like, 'Hey Mary, remember when you mistook Jesus for the gardener? That was hilarious.'" But here's the thing. If Mary mistook Jesus for the gardener, what does that say about how he looked? Not great, I am guessing. He probably looked and smelled like someone who had spent the past 3 days inside a tomb. Like someone who made his living digging in the dirt. It's such a good reminder of how much we like to clean up Jesus. When in his life, insofar as we actually know about it, he was not remotely tidy, and neither was his death. He hung out with the people society said were unclean and untouchable and were generally despised, the tax collectors, the sex workers, the people with leprosy. He didn't even have a home. He stayed with friends. He told people to leave everything behind and come with him. And he said these wild, radical, upsetting things. Like the first shall be last, and the last shall be first, and sell all you have and give it to the poor. And he died the death of a political dissident and troublemaker, not tidy. Kate Bowler says maybe it wasn't a mistake that Mary thought he was the gardener. Maybe it was kind of prophetic instead. Because gardeners know what hope looks like. Gardeners put seeds in the cold ground and wait and tend and believe that with sunshine and water, something will bloom. Gardeners know how to have faith that something good will get born out of these tiny seeds that look like nothing, something that will end up feeding people. So maybe Mary was just calling out Jesus' true nature as someone who tended and fed and healed and nurtured, someone who believed in possibility, someone who believed in growth and in transformation. But my favorite part of this story is how Mary recognizes Jesus when he says her name. Just that one word, Mary. But the moment he says it, she knows him. She hears her name spoken in love. She hears her name said like a blessing. It is this moment of being fully known. And that is what love can do. About these moments of life-changing recognition, Jan Richardson writes, "You hardly imagine standing here, everything you ever loved suddenly returned to you. Looking you in the eye and calling your name, and now you do not know how to abide this hole in the center of your chest where a door slams shut and swings open at the same time, turning on the hinge of your aching and hopeful heart. This is an invitation. This is a choice. This is a threshold. This is your life calling to you from a place you could never have dreamed, but now that you have glimpsed its edge, you cannot imagine choosing any other way. So let this blessing gather itself around you. Let it give you what you will need for this journey. You will not remember the words. They do not matter. All you need to remember is how it sounded. How it sounded when you stood in the place of death and heard the living call your name. You will not remember the words. All you need to remember is how it sounded when you stood in the place of death and heard the living call your name. We cannot possibly know what happened that first Easter morning. We can only know that something must have happened. Something allowed those grieving, terrified, scattered disciples to gather themselves, to find each other, and to find their way back to hope again. Maybe they saw their beloved teacher again. Maybe they felt his presence the way so many of us have felt the nearness of loved ones after they die. Maybe they heard him saying their names, whispering a blessing into their ears, a blessing meant just for them, and they remember the sound. But whatever happened, they kept going, they didn't forget, and the story didn't end. Love, not death, love had the final word. This is the promise of Easter morning, that love has the final word. That even when we find ourselves in places of death and sorrow and grief and helplessness, life can still call to us. Love can still call to us by name and beckon us back. So inside your egg, you will find two tiny blessings. They are 3 words each. One is for you, and one is to give to someone sitting near you. So take a moment now to open up your egg and read the blessings and choose which one is for you and which one is to give away. And once you have decided, you can give the second blessing to someone near you. And you can trade blessings as many times as you like. And the children near you may need some help reading theirs if they are not readers. So I want you to put your blessing somewhere where you will see it. I want you to stick it on your car dashboard or tape it to your bathroom mirror, and I want you to say it to yourself. And imagine the voice of someone who loves you whispering this blessing into your aching, hopeful heart. Love has the final word. Love has the final word. So our closing hymn is Lo, the Earth Awakes Again. And why don't we stand as able, and we'll hum or sway or dance or all of those things while the choir sings it to us.
Go in peace. Be a blessing to this world.
Happy Easter!
Happy Easter!